Well, they can make them not slice it for a swing, but
Yeah.
fixing it's different.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
There's the difference.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of instruction videos. You can find thousands and thousands of ways to swing. I guess to me it would be find the one that works for you, right? And
Try to give a
Swing or swing.
75-year-old guy, get him turning and getting into the gear. And that's just not going to happen.
Create more club heads.
Right, exactly.
Start firing that one hip.
Yeah.
And that's something you got to talk to students about too, or
Right.
realistic expectations.
Yeah.
I had a lesson. It's been probably 5 years ago or so. A gentleman was 90 years old, and he was hitting his 7-iron over 100 yards, and he wanted to gain club head speed, hit it farther. Somebody like that being, is 90 years old, hitting a 7-iron over 100 yards.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. They have to have realistic expectations when they come into a lesson. For
sure.
yeah.
You schedule your lessons really close together.
So we kind of started touching on this a little bit. What's your biggest message to, when you're giving instruction to your students?
I mean, I think one of the number one things that people do is they're just too tense in their golf swings. They carry too much tension. They change their pressures. They, get up here and then change their pressures. And, they're so tight in the forearms. And I really try to get people to loosen up, relieve the tension, let this club swing. And that's the majority of what I'm trying to get people to do. Relieve that.
Yeah. I would say in the last handful of years, as I've transitioned to a lot more kind of that beginner novice student after really being focused on the better players, just routine. Have a routine for everything you do. If you can get set up to the ball and look like a tour player, we've got a good chance of hitting the ball. And if you can't get set up there, because the golf swing takes 2 seconds. Whatever your body's set up, it's on a path for success or failure real quick. So getting them to realize, because they all want to jump into the swing, and it's like, we're not quite there yet. So let's just work on that setup. So for me, it's, harping on a routine from how you grip the club to how you walk in for your posture and balance and all those types of things, just so when you're ready to go, then we can work on, don't squeeze too hard at the top. Right. Don't change that grip pressure.
Or whatever it is, right? But
we've already touched on it a little bit, but just the understanding of it's not going to happen overnight. I related a lot to learning an instrument. If I went to learn how to play guitar or take a guitar lesson, I'm not going to the next morning wake up and all of a sudden be able to play a song. Like it's, give you drills, give you stuff to work on. And eventually, hopefully, you get to that point where you can play the guitar awesome, but it's not going to happen the next day. And that's kind of the biggest thing I try to talk to the students when they come in is just you got to how committed are you, and you got to put the time in on your own to get better.
Yeah, mine's kind of two-part. I mean, obviously for the beginners and the weekend style warriors, it's GASP, right? GASP, grip, alignment, stance, posture. That's always going to be the meat and the potatoes of it. But a little bit more accomplished players, somebody who's been playing a little more often, I always kind of kid around like, you're going to come see me for an hour. You're going to leave here swinging worse than when you showed up, because we've changed something. We have changed something. The reason that you're here, we changed this, and that being said, is like, so whatever feels comfortable to you, it's not different. We got to make it feel uncomfortable. That's what I keep saying the word exaggeration. We got to make it feel uncomfortable to where that's the only way you're going to get it as soon as you can. You're not going to get it in an hour. You're not going to get it in a day or a week. We've used the term like going to the gym. No different than going with a gym session for an hour. 2 weeks later, that same person comes to the gym. Hey, how's the gym been going the last 2 weeks? Oh, I haven't been able to get in there. Well, what are you doing here now? Then it doesn't matter. Yeah. That's the biggest. It's just the expectation of they want to get better or whatever it is in an hour or a week. It's just not going to happen.
I think back to years ago when we had Golf World and we had this money back guarantee. I think we talked about this last time. I'm like, I'll give all your money back for these lessons, but you got to come in and practice. And we had one student out of hundreds that actually came in and continued to practice. And I'm like, you control your own destiny. I'm giving you an education, but it's up to you to do the work. And I think students, they got to realize that they're not buying a golf game when they take a golf lesson. They're buying some education. They got to work at it.
We did talk about the last time we had you on, because I was one of them students too, in Saginaw State Street. Remember? I remember had this, and Doug was ahead of his time at the time because we were at camera. And taking golf swings, and he had to dry erase marker on the TV. It was awesome, man. It was like
Austin
cool.
was born,
right?
Right.
Seriously,
I might not have even been a thought at that point.
Right.
Probably not.
It was cool. I mean, but nobody else was doing anything like that camera wise. I mean, it was cool.
Yeah, we had a couple of hitting bays inside of just the nets, and then
it was awesome.
But people would come in, we block off practice time, and people would schedule time to practice. Nobody show up. They show up for the lesson, but they wouldn't show up for that extra practice. And then how are things going? Well, work got in the way, the kids, you name it. And so I think they all learn that it's you get out of it what you put into it.
Sure. Yeah.
That's funny.
Playing golf's definitely different than practicing, that's for sure.
It's the same. I'll tell people, like somebody who comes over top, steep shaft, okay, we know you got to get underneath, you got to pitch it down, come underneath, swing out right. But I was like, you can get it in here in the range. You can get comfortable with it a little bit. Show up tomorrow on the golf course in the first tee and there's water right.
Yeah.
Or you think you're going to go underneath and swing towards the water? You're just not going to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to get away and slice it in there instead.
But hopefully that comfort, right, is somewhere
Yeah.
in between where you started and
Right.
where you are during your sessions, right? And that's where you want to get it to be at.
And that's where you get better as a player, is on the range, hitting balls, and not on the course. So when I have people go out on the course, I try to tell them, all your swing thoughts should be done on the driving range. You shouldn't be out playing, worrying about the lesson you just took. So, it's important to put the time in. When you get done with your lesson, work on things and not just go right out on the course and play a quick 9 holes.
Yeah, I think that learned behavior aspect of I'm always working on something, but when you get on the course, just to be target oriented and not think of, am I breathing right? Am I doing this? You just got to look at the target and react to that, and it's a learned behavior, especially for those students that are so hardcore on working on their swing, and they got a beautiful swing, and they get on the course and they just can't pull it together, and you just got to be target oriented out there.
Scoring's so different than a golf swing, right? There's a lot of bad golf swings that can score.
You're not kidding.
And there's a lot of good golf swings that don't.
Yeah. Oh, I still think you're correct. Your short game, you got to work on that. I mean, you can go out there and drive the ball a mile. There's a lot of things you can do. You have a bad short game, it's not going to end up well on a scorecard.
Yeah.
Just won't
No
look
doubt.
good.
I mean, I can sit on the range. There's a couple of people that come to mind and hit balls next to somebody who might be a 10 handicap. And I'm looking, I was like, man, he's hitting the ball better than I am. But he'd go out there and just getting it around, being able to score.
Yeah.
Short game, being able to, get out from this trouble or not getting it's like it's a huge factor when it comes to scoring. Obviously, just getting it around and getting it in the hole.
High handicappers, we get mad and we quit. I mean, it is. You get pissed. So you're like, hell with this. Instead of thinking, okay, you made a bad swing, go next time and make a better swing. Put yourself in a position to be able to get up and down. Turn a double into a single, right? Don't give up on that hole because you had a bad swing. That's tough because, again, instant gratification. I want to see a better swing. Yeah.
Earlier we talked about the difference between a low and a high handicap. A low handicapper can forget what just happened.
Sure.
A high handicapper just can't.
Oh, no.
You're just done.
Right.
Oh, no.
Right.
We've all seen the videos. The pubs flying, smashing them on the ground, snapping them in half.
And again, going back to the high handicappers, I think a lot of them don't realize the mental aspect of the game. That's very, very important of not compounding bad shots or turning that bogey into a double or triple. And, not trying to play the hero and hit a miraculous shot out of the woods to get it on the green instead of just punching out. And,
Sure.
So we see that a lot too out on the course and high handicap players.
What do you mean? High handicappers can hit between two trees as wide as that TV screen 100 yards out? Sure, we can do it.
90% air or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And exactly like you said, punch it out and give yourself a good neck shot. Pick a target, right?
Yeah.
What is that distance you can get to that you're comfortable hitting that next shot?
Yeah. I mean, and you're just adding up numbers, right?
Oh.
And whether that 5 falls on a par 3 or a par 4, whatever it is, I mean, it's just a 5 that you're hitting up, and get people to understand that rather than obsessing over I got to hit this on the green to make a par. It's like it's not, you don't always need to do that.
We had kind of a funny story. I don't know if we talked about this one last time with our junior league at a state tournament a few years ago. We had a couple kids and we're coming down. There's 2 holes to go, and we're right there. And I'm giving some coaching on the tee box. I'm like, you just got to hit it like 160 yards. I'm hitting my driver really good. I'm like, yeah, you got a pond that comes into play out of bounds. It's about 2 feet wide. And, and these are young kids, right? They're like 12. I'm hitting it good. And I'm like, well, if it was me, I would hit it here because you can make a par from the fairway. But at the end, you choose your own, So both of them hit driver OB, and they're just losing their mind. Their dad comes up after, what'd you say? What'd you say to my kid? And this and that. And I can't believe. I said, they got to live with it. I said, you know what's going to happen? They're never going to hit a driver again because that's how you learn.
That's a teaching moment.
You got it. And I said, that's how you learn because when you're young, you haven't been burned enough at this game to realize that.
I love that.
Yeah, and he sat there and goes, all right. I just would have taken it right out of his hand. I'm like, no.
He's got to learn.
Yeah.
So
he said his piece. You said your piece.
Yeah.
He makes the decision.
Hey, man, you guys have seen high handicappers. They always hit with a driver. It doesn't matter what the hole is.
Yeah.
They're going to hit that driver.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he's the one who constantly is like, think about the shot. It's like, yeah, I don't need it here. That's self-destruction. But they all want to hit it a long ways, right? Bomb that thing down there.
Oh, yeah.
So to kind of wrap things up, we always love to talk to people about, I mean, you guys are instructors, about some funny stories. I mean, there's always some. Do you guys have any that you can talk about? Obviously, no names. We don't have to talk about people unless it's somebody you really want to get at. Yeah. I mean, but some good stories of instruction. Because I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many smaller, non-monumental funny moments as an instructor that you go through that, you know, wouldn't get a chuckle out of a big group, but you just, you know, think they're funny. But I don't know, I was with a student one time at the back of Curry's range, and gosh, just a handle dragger, just right, trying to get him to release the club. And we finally get him to release this club, and this club goes soaring out of his hands up into that huge tree left on the back of Curry.
Yeah, right.
So I'm like, crap, and I climb up this tree, probably about a good 15, 20 feet, get back down, next swing, right back up.
No,
Back up there.
Same tree. Yep, and it was
I hope
higher
you
up.
climbed up or she climbed up.
No, I went and I said, we're leaving that there. Got a ladder the next day and got it in the morning.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, boy.
And I'll say the name because I have no shame. It's Carson Everett.
Oh, Carson. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I had a student a couple of years ago out on the driving range at the Nightmare Golf Course that I was teaching, and was with a lesson, and I knew my second one was coming out shortly after, and I turned behind me and I see a gentleman walking out of the clubhouse with about 5 or 6 dozen golf balls, carrying them in his arms. Well, he walked all the way out to the range. Very new golfer, very new to the game. He thought he had to buy his own range balls that he purchased off the rack in the pro shop to bring to hit out on the driving range for his lesson.
That's awesome.
Thank goodness.
That's awesome. No
Hey,
way.
I had what's very similar to the new golfers, since I have a lot of new golfers that I see. I had a gentleman show up and he's got, you know, before your time again, Austin, parachute pants on. And I make a comment to him. I said, "You look like MC Hammer." And this guy, still to this day, and I'm like, "Oh, we'll go out and hit," and we're laughing. Still to this day, when he calls and books a lesson, it's MC Hammer.
No kidding.
It's MC Hammer here. I need to book a lesson.
That's
Oh, it's so funny, but still this day, he had no idea. He didn't know, like, similar to that, right? I don't know what I wear, where I should be.
Sure.
It was great.
Oh, that is funny.
I had one. So every short game lesson, so a lot of people buy 3-packs, and usually if a 3-pack, usually by the second lesson, I'm going over doing a short game at the par 3 at Curry. And all my short game lessons, I start out the same way. I give somebody no clubs. I give them 3 balls in their hand, 2 in one left hand if they're right-handed, 1 in the right, and we just stand about 10 or 15 feet off the green, and then I just want you to try to underhand toss it into the hole. First one. And the whole premise of this is just learning, you know, to get a little bit better, a little whatever you're doing, and to learn your feel. So you're not really thinking of where you're releasing it, how far you're reaching back, anything like that. First one, didn't even sniff the green, over the green by 20 feet. I'm like, holy mackerel, we're only 30 feet away from the pin. Like, whoa, okay. Second one, over the green. They're 25 feet over the green. I'm like, we got some feel issues.
Yeah.
Third one, over the green.
Oh my gosh.
3 balls from 30 feet away. Couldn't
adjust.
Keep one on the green. No.
You should have moved back to 60.
Right? Yeah.
At that point, I'm like,
You would
this
look
is
like a
gonna
hero.
be this is gonna be a long 3-pack lesson. Is gonna be
Yeah.
very like, oh boy.
Man.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we've all dealt with that kind of like the feel and whatever
Right.
issues, but it's like, wow, that was a bad one.
When he would teach, he had some students that he showed up to a lesson with, and he had a mitt and a ball, and all he did is play catch. And that was the golf lesson for 30 minutes, just trying to get the coordination, the feel of, you know, using your hands and doing this stuff, because it was probably a person very similar to that, where I just had zero feel and zero, you know, ability to do anything like that.
Well, we had your dad on for a podcast here, one of our first ones.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
We told the story. This is my story as a student. Your dad meets me out. We're at the country club right out. So literally, he shows up, and I got my bag out there. He drives up. He's got 2 bags. I've told you the story too. He's got his bag, and then he's got just a bag of junky clubs. And I was like, "What are we doing?" He's like, "We're throwing clubs today."
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, I'm a handle dragger. I'd like to hang on to it with my left hand. He's like, "I just want you." Gives me like a 7-iron. He's like, "I just want you to throw it in front of you down this fairway." And I'm like, "All right." I think it's the stupidest thing in the world. I'm like, "Okay." So I get up there, set up to it, and I go to throw it. And for whatever reason, I hung on to it. Goes behind me, gets stuck in the tree. I can't. And I am laughing so hard, I'm crying, and he's laughing so hard. We laughed for 5 minutes. We just sit there. We couldn't even talk. We were just crying, laughing. We didn't get it down. It was up there for like 3 months.
Oh, that's
we just
so
laughed about it. It took me about 4 or 5 clubs throwing to get it straight. I kept going from behind me. It would go over here to there, and it finally got it straight. For me to feel it straight, I felt like I was releasing it over here.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's probably typical for the other way. People release more that way.
Sure, they'll put it right in the
Yeah.
ground,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll just. Yeah, I mean that's a great job.
It is.
I think like Austin said too, ADM model, like other sports, balance is balance. It doesn't matter if it's in golf and if you're throwing a football and coordination, like you can do other things. Because let's face it, a lot of people may not become golfers, but if you're out there doing some of those things, it all carries back to what you're working on. So I think there's a lot of value in the baseball or throwing a football
Whatever
or a
it
frisbee,
is.
and
Especially young kids too. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I deal with them.
Yeah.
Just getting them to be athletic and do different things and stuff like that.
That's one of the first questions I ask students when they come is what other sports have you played?
No matter
So
the
that
age,
you
honestly.
can try to relate it to something that they're familiar with. And
Mario Kart.
There you go.
Exactly. Right.
I mean, you got a long time baseball player. It's different.
Well, guys, I mean, what a great session. Great to sit down and talk with all of you. Any last thoughts before we sign off?
Hey, appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We thank you guys for being here today. A lot of great information. Can't wait to get this out to our group. MFers, you can play bad, just play fast.